My son died 15 years ago in a devastating accident. I saw him in the casket, felt his cold skin, and tossed dirt into his grave. But last night, at 3:27 in the morning, my cell phone rang. His name flashed on the screen, and when I answered, I heard his confused voice asking, "Mom, where am I? It's completely dark in here." How can your heart keep beating when you hear the voice of someone you buried? But before I continue, check if you're subscribed to the channel and write in the comments where you're watching this video from. We love to know how far our stories are reaching. My name is Alara Vance, and for 15 years, I lived with a hole in my chest where my heart used to be. My son, Zion, was only 17 years old when he died in a motorcycle crash. A drunk driver ran a red light on a rainy night and hit him head on. In that moment, my knees buckled when the phone rang at 11:42 p.m. It was the hospital. Ms. Alara Vance, mother of Zion Vance. That single question already held all the answers I didn't want to hear. They say there's a mother's instinct that warns us when something terrible happens to our children. Right then, even before the doctor finished the sentence, I already knew. It was as if an invisible thread that had always connected me to Zion had been abruptly severed. The viewing was a blur. I remember sitting beside the casket, unable to cry, staring at my boy's face. He looked like he was sleeping, except for the grayish tone of his skin and the heavy makeup trying to conceal the bruises. I spent the whole night caressing his ice-cold hand, uselessly hoping his fingers would close around mine, as they did when he was little and needed protection. At the cemetery, I tossed a white rose onto the casket as it was lowered into the ground. The sound of the dirt hitting the wood was the moment reality finally slammed into me like a freight train. My son was dead. I would never hear his laugh or feel his hug again. I would never see him graduate, marry, or have children. All that remained of 17 years of life were photographs, clothes with his scent, and memories that would fade with time. Zion's father couldn't handle it. 6 months after the funeral, Darius asked for a divorce. He said he couldn't look at me without remembering the son we lost. Maybe he was right. I couldn't look at him either without feeling that someone was missing between us. Our 20-year marriage ended with a signature on cold papers, another death to add to my collection of losses. While Darius moved on, he remarried and had other children, I stayed trapped in that grave. Zion's room remained untouched, a sanctuary frozen in time. His clothes were still in the closet, his worn sneakers beside the bed, his books on the shelf and on the desk, the math homework he never finished. I couldn't get rid of anything. Every object seemed to hold a piece of him that I refused to lose. Every Sunday, without fail, I visited his grave with fresh flowers. I cleaned the headstone, pulled the weeds, and talked to him as if he could hear me. I told him about the week, the little things that happened, the news of the world. Sometimes I brought a book and read aloud because Zion always loved it when I read to him before bed. You should move on, people told me, as if it were simple to leave behind the child who grew inside my womb, as if there were a deadline for a mother's grief. I tried therapy, support groups, antidepressants. Nothing healed that wound. I only learned to coexist with the pain, to carry it as a constant companion. For 15 years, I kept Zion's cell phone number active. I paid the bill every month just so I could call occasionally and hear the voicemail message in his teenage voice. "Hey, you've reached Zion. Leave a message and I'll call you back. Thanks." Those few seconds of audio were like a portal to a world where he still existed, where his voice still vibrated in the air. Maybe it was madness, but it was my way of keeping him alive. People moved on. His friends graduated, got married, and had kids. The world kept turning without Zion in it. I kept breathing, working as a kindergarten teacher, existing in a limbo between life and death. I wasn't truly alive, just existing out of inertia, counting the days until I could be reunited with my son again. That's when it happened, on a Wednesday, August 14th, 15 years after the accident. It was exactly 3:27 in the morning when my cell phone rang, pulling me from a restless sleep. In the darkness of the room, the screen's glow illuminated the name I never expected to see. Zion. No, it wasn't Zion, do not answer, as I had renamed the contact years ago when I would call the number just to hear the voicemail. It was just Zion, as if someone had restored the original contact. My heart rate skyrocketed, beating against my ribs like a caged animal. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. It couldn't be real. It had to be a dream, a glitch, some technical failure. Or maybe sanity had finally abandoned me altogether after years of living with the ghost of loss. The phone kept ringing, relentlessly. 5, 6 rings. On the 7th, something inside me snapped. I answered. For several seconds, I only heard slow, hesitant, human breathing. "Hello?" I whispered, my voice failing. More silence. And then, "Mom." The voice was his. There was no mistaking it. The same tone, the same way he'd slightly drawl the word, Mom. "Mom, where am I? It's completely dark in here." The air froze in my lungs. The room's walls seemed to contract around me. This couldn't be happening. "Zion." That was all I could manage as my entire body trembled. "Yeah, it's me. I don't know where I am. I can't see anything. I'm cold. What happened to me?" I switched on the lamp beside the bed with shaking fingers, as if the light could dispel this madness. My mind was firing in 1,000 different directions. It could be a cruel joke, someone who had stolen his number, an auditory hallucination caused by medication and sleepless nights. But that voice, I would recognize that voice anywhere. "Zion, is that really you?" I asked, tears streaming down my face. "How? How is this possible?" "I don't know, Mom." His voice sounded distant, confused. I remember the crash. I remember the rain, the car lights coming right at me, and then nothing, just darkness. And now I'm here, but I don't know where here is. I can't see anything. I feel like I'm trapped. A sob escaped my throat. I jumped up, stumbling across the room while holding the phone like a lifeline. "Zion, You died 15 years ago. I buried you." Silence on the other end. A silence so dense I could almost touch it. "No, Mom. I can't be dead. I'm talking to you. I'm thinking. I'm feeling. I just can't move. Everything is tight around me." I felt a chill run down my spine. Tight. Like a coffin. My God. Could it be a hospital mistake? Someone declared dead prematurely? Stories of people being buried alive swirled in my mind in a torrent of horror, but it was impossible. I saw him at the viewing. I touched his cold skin. He was buried 15 years ago. He couldn't be alive after all this time. "Where are you right now?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "What do you see around you?" "Nothing. It's totally dark. I can feel wood. I'm lying down on something hard. There's a weird smell like dirt and mold. Mom, I'm scared." My blood froze in my veins. He was describing a casket. How could he know that? How could he be conscious after 15 years? "Calm down, my son." The words came out automatically, mother's instinct overriding the panic. "I'm going to help you. Just tell me how I can find you." "I don't know. I just remember the accident and then waking up here. Mom, how long did you say it's been?" 15 years, Zion." My voice broke. You died in 2010. I heard his breathing quicken, turning into desperate sobs. "It can't be. It can't. I'm 17. How could I have lost 15 years of my life?" I grabbed the dresser to keep from falling. The situation was absurd, impossible, and yet it was happening. The voice of my son, my dead son, was sounding through the phone with the same clarity as when he was alive. "Zion, I'm going to find you, okay? I'm going to find a way." Even I didn't believe what I was saying, but the desperation in his voice drove me to promise anything. Just don't hang up, please. Don't hang up. The battery's dying, Mom. The panic was palpable in his voice. The phone's flashing. I don't want to be left alone in here. Wait, Zion, how are you calling me? Where did you get a phone? The questions exploded in my mind, searching for some logic in that madness. It was in my pocket, my old cell phone. I don't know how it still works, but the screen says the battery is almost dead. His old cell phone, the same one that was buried with him at his request in the will he wrote at 16, during a phase when he was obsessed with his own mortality. At the time, we thought it was just a teenage whim, but we respected his wish. Zion, listen to me. I tried to organize my chaotic thoughts. Do you remember Cypress Grove Memorial Park in Stone Mountain? That's where we buried you, in the east wing, near the big oak tree. If you're in the casket, that's where you are. Cemetery. His voice trembled. I'm really dead. I don't know anymore, son. I don't know what's happening, but I'm coming there right now. Mom, the battery's almost... His voice began to cut out. Scared. Please, help me. Zion! Zion, hang on! I'm coming! I screamed into the phone, but only heard the call-ended signal. He had hung up, or the battery had died. Trembling, I tried to call his number back. Nothing. Just the automated message saying the number didn't exist, as if those brief minutes of conversation had never happened. I didn't stop to think about the logic or the impossibility of the situation. I threw a jacket over my pajamas, grabbed my car keys, and ran out to the garage. It was nearly 4 a.m. when I drove like a maniac through the deserted streets of Atlanta, running red lights, my heart beating so hard it felt like it would explode. The cemetery would be closed at that hour, but I knew the night watchman, Mr. Silas. Over years of Sunday visits, we had formed a silent friendship. He always let me stay a few minutes past closing when I lost track of time, talking to Zion's grave. I parked haphazardly at the cemetery entrance and ran to the guard booth. Mr. Silas was sleeping in a chair, but woke up startled by my frantic pounding on the glass. Ms. Alara, what happened? It's 4 a.m. I need to get in, Silas, now. It's urgent. It's about my son. He looked at me as if I had lost my mind, and maybe I had. Your boy. But Ms. Alara, I know it seems crazy, I interrupted, but I need to go to his grave right now, please. Something in my desperate look must have convinced him because he nodded, grabbed a bunch of keys and a flashlight. I'll go with you. It's not safe to be alone out here in the dark. I didn't have time to thank him. I was already running down the stone path I knew so well, illuminated only by the light of the waning moon. Mr. Silas was right behind me, panting, trying to keep up with my frantic pace. 15 years of visiting the same spot creates a precise mental map. Even in the darkness, I knew how to find the way to Zion's grave, left at the Almeida Mausoleum, right at the angel statue, follow the cypress path to the big oak tree, and there, beneath the shadow of the centuries-old tree, was the marble headstone with his name, Zion Eduardo Vance, 1993-2010, beloved son, forever in our hearts. I fell to my knees in front of the grave, the world spinning around me. What did I expect to find? What was I looking for? A call from beyond the grave didn't mean I could dig him up and find him alive. 15 years is too long. Even if there had been some mistake, even if he had been buried alive, a thought that sent shivers of horror down my back, there would be no way to survive that long underground. Ms. Alara, Mr. Silas approached, concerned. Are you all right? I didn't answer. My eyes were fixed on the earth over the grave, firm, intact soil, covered by a carpet of well-kept grass that I myself had planted years ago. No sign of disturbance, nothing to indicate that someone or something had emerged from there. He called me, Silas, I murmured, without taking my eyes off the grave. My Zion called me less than half an hour ago. The watchman placed a hand on my shoulder, his voice gentle. Ms. Alara, you had a nightmare. It happens when we lose someone we love." "It wasn't a dream," I screamed, pushing his hand away. "I was awake. I answered the phone. It was his voice." I started scraping the grass with my fingernails, trying to dig, to claw at the dirt with my bare hands. It was madness. I knew it. A grave is almost 6 feet deep. I would never be able to reach the casket that way. But reason had abandoned me the moment I heard my son's voice on the phone. "Miss Ilara, please." Mr. Silas grabbed my wrists, preventing me from continuing that useless attempt. "You'll hurt yourself. This isn't normal." And I broke down in tears, smearing my face with the dirt from my hands. "He said it's dark. He said he's trapped. He's scared, Silas." I sobbed uncontrollably. "How can I leave him like that? How?" The watchman helped me up, supporting me as I trembled. "I'm going to take you home. You're very upset. Tomorrow everything will look different." But I knew it wouldn't. Nothing would be the same after that call. If I couldn't dig up my son with my own hands, I needed to find another way to understand what was happening. "His phone," I murmured, as Mr. Silas guided me out of the cemetery. "It was with him in the casket. How could it work after so many years? How could it have battery? How could it get a signal down there?" The watchman didn't answer, probably thinking I was delirious. And maybe I was. Maybe the loneliness and grief had finally corroded what was left of my sanity, and I was hallucinating, creating an alternative reality where my son could still contact me somehow. I drove home in a daze, eyes fixed on the dark road ahead of me. Mr. Silas insisted on following me in his car to make sure I got inside safely. I promised him I would try to rest, that I would call my doctor in the morning, white lies to calm a good man who was worried about me. As soon as I closed the door, I rushed to the phone and tried to call Zion's number again. Nothing. The same message that the number didn't exist. I tried 10, 20 more times, always with the same result. I sat in the kitchen, shaking, trying to organize my thoughts. I needed help. I needed someone who would believe me, or at least pretend to believe while I figured out what was happening. Darius, Zion's father. If there was anyone who could understand, it would be him. Even with our relationship deteriorated after the divorce, we shared a love for our son. I looked at the clock. 5:12 a.m. Too early for a normal call. But this had stopped being a normal situation. I dialed his number, which I still knew by heart, even after all these years. After 4 rings, I heard his sleepy voice. "Ilara, is that you? Is something wrong?" "Darius." My voice trembled. "I need to tell you something. It's going to sound crazy, but I need you to listen." I told him everything. The call, Zion's voice, the phone in the casket, my desperate trip to the cemetery. I expected him to interrupt me, to call me crazy, to suggest psychiatric hospitalization. But Darius just listened in silence, breathing heavily on the other end of the line. When I finished, there was a long moment of silence. "Do you believe me?" I asked finally, my voice small and uncertain. "I don't know what to believe, Ilara." His voice sounded strangely controlled. "But I know you wouldn't make something like this up. Not about Zion. I need your help. I need to understand what's happening." "What do you want to do?" "Exhume the body." The words came out before I could think. "I need to be sure, Darius. I need to see what's down there." More silence. Then, "You know that's almost impossible, right? We'd need court authorization. It's going to take time. And even if we get it, Ilara, 15 years, there won't be much to see." "I know. But I need to try. If there's the slightest chance that some mistake happened—" "I'll be there in an hour," he said, surprising me. "We'll talk in person." I hung up the phone and sat in the kitchen darkness, motionless, trying to process everything that had happened during that surreal morning. Part of me wanted to believe it was just a vivid dream, that I had fallen asleep on the couch and my mind had played a cruel trick on me. But I knew it wasn't true. The call had been real. The voice was Zion's. My son was trying to contact me from somewhere between life and death. Darius arrived in less than an hour. His graying hair was messy, deep circles under his eyes. When I opened the door, I saw the same man who had been my husband for 20 years, now older, with deeper lines in his face. But his eyes held the same look, Zion's eyes, which he had inherited from his father. "You look terrible," he said, trying to soften the tension with humor. "You're not looking your best either," I replied, letting him in. We sat in the living room, the silence heavy between us. It had been years since we'd been like this, face to face, alone. Our rare meetings after the divorce always happened in public places, often with his new wife and children present. "Tell me every detail again," he asked, leaning forward with his elbows resting on his knees. I repeated the whole story, adding details I'd forgotten the first time. The exact tone of Zion's voice, his ragged breathing, the description of the darkness and the tight space. "The cell phone," Darius interrupted. "You said he has the cell phone in the casket." "Yes, don't you remember? It was one of the requests in his will." Darius nodded slowly. "I remember that strange phase when he wrote down what he wanted if he died. We didn't imagine that he would actually die so young," I completed. "An old Nokia, right? One of those indestructible ones." "Yes," I agreed, remembering the blue phone Zion loved. "But still, Darius, 15 years underground, the battery wouldn't last that long. And how would he get a signal down there?" "It doesn't make sense," he agreed. Unless what? Unless it's not really coming from the grave." Darius stood up, walking restlessly around the living room. "Alara, have you thought that it could be something else? Someone playing a trick on you, maybe? Someone who knows about the cell phone buried with him?" I shook my head vehemently. "No, Darius, it was his voice. No one could imitate it like that, and who would be so cruel?" Darius ran a hand through his graying hair, a gesture that reminded me so much of Zion that I felt a pang in my chest. "So, what are you suggesting? That our son somehow managed to call you from inside the casket 15 years after dying?" He stopped, choosing his words. "Alara, you need to consider other possibilities. Maybe you're needing help." "You think I'm crazy?" It wasn't a question. "I didn't say that." He sat down again, gripping my hands in his, an intimate gesture we hadn't shared in years. "I'm saying that grief does strange things to the mind. You never got over his death. You really never moved on." I pulled my hands away, moving apart. "How did you move on with your perfect new wife and your perfect new kids?" "That's not fair, Alara." His voice hardened. "I lost my son too. I suffered too. I just chose to deal with it differently." I closed my eyes, trying to calm down. Arguing with Darius wouldn't help me find answers. And deep down, I knew he was right. It was an absurd, impossible story. Any rational person would doubt it. "I'm going to try calling him again," I said, grabbing the phone in front of him. "You'll see." I dialed Zion's number one more time, putting it on speaker. The automated message sounded loud and clear. "The number you have dialed does not exist." "See?" Darius said gently. "Alara, The phone in my hand started vibrating, interrupting him. On the screen, the name Zion flashed again. "It's him!" I shouted, almost throwing the device. "Are you seeing this? Are you seeing this?" Darius's face went pale. He was seeing it. There was no denying it. With trembling hands, I answered the call and put it on speaker. "Zion!" I called out, my voice barely working. "Mom!" His voice sounded distant, choppy, as if the connection was bad. "Mom, I managed to charge the phone a bit. There's a light now." Darius raised a hand to his mouth, eyes wide with shock. He was hearing the same voice I was. "Zion!" I called louder. "Your dad is here with me. We're on speaker." "Dad." His voice seemed more alert. "Dad, is that you?" Darius swallowed, tears in his eyes. "Yes, son, it's me." "What's happening to me? Why are they saying I'm dead? I remember the accident, but then everything is hazy." I looked at Darius, unsure what to say. How do you explain to someone that they've been dead for 15 years? Zion. Darius took the lead, his voice choked. You said there's a light now. What are you seeing? There's a type of flashlight here. It was in my jacket pocket along with the phone. I don't know how it still works, but I can see a little bit now. I'm in a wooden box. It's small. I can barely move. I felt the blood freeze in my veins. He was describing the casket. What else do you see? Darius asked, gripping my hand tightly. There's a white cloth, and I'm wearing... Wait, it's not my clothes, it's a suit. I never had a suit like this. The funeral clothes. The suit we bought for him to be buried in. Darius and I exchanged looks of horror. Zion, my voice trembled. Try to push the lid. See if you can open it. We heard sounds of struggle, groans. I can't. It's too heavy. It feels like there's something on top. Dirt, maybe. Darius took the phone from my hand, holding it closer to his face. Zion, listen to me. We need to understand what's happening. How long have you been conscious in there? I don't know. His voice sounded frustrated. It's like I just woke up from a long, confusing dream. I remember parts of my life, school, friends, you guys, but there are a lot of blurry things. It's like I've been sleeping for a long time. And the accident, what do you remember? It was raining. Coming back from Jada's house, the bike slid on the curve. I saw the headlights coming at me very fast. Then pain, a lot of pain, and then nothing, until I woke up here in the darkness. The description matched exactly what we knew about the accident. The police reports, the witness testimonies. Zion, I called, taking the phone back. What's the last date you remember? March 10th, 2010. A Wednesday. I had a physics test the next day. Darius and I looked at each other again. March 10th, 2010. The day of the accident, exactly 15 years ago. And do you remember? I hesitated, not knowing how to ask. Do you remember dying? Silence on the other end. Just his irregular breathing. I don't know. His voice was almost a whisper. Now I remember the pain. Then a feeling of floating, like I was being pulled upward, bright lights, voices I didn't recognize, and then darkness until I woke up here. Mom, Dad, am I really dead? How do you answer that? How do you tell your own son that he did die, was viewed, mourned, and buried? Zion, Darius took over, sparing me from having to answer. Something very strange is happening. We need to investigate. Do you think you can maintain contact with us? How much battery does the phone still have? 30%, I think. I don't know how it's still working after... How long did you say? 15 years, I replied, my voice failing. It's 2025, son. My God. He seemed to be trying to absorb the information. So I'd be 32 now. It's so weird to think about. It feels like I was in high school yesterday. For him, it really had been. Time had stopped at the moment of the impact that took his life. 15 years in the blink of an eye. Zion, Darius said, adopting a more practical tone. We need to find a way to verify all this, to understand what's happening. You said you have a flashlight. Can you look around, see if there's anything else with you in the casket? I'll try. We heard sounds of movement restricted by the small space. There are some dried flowers, a rosary, and an envelope. An envelope? I asked, surprised. What kind of envelope? It looks like a letter. It has my name written on it. The handwriting is yours, Mom. The letter. I had completely forgotten about it. The night before the funeral, I wrote a farewell letter to Zion and asked for it to be placed in the casket. A final message for my son. Words I didn't have a chance to say while he was alive. Can you open it? I asked, remembering the intimate and painful content of that letter, written at the height of despair. Yeah, I'm opening it. My dearest Zion, he began reading aloud. If there's a world beyond this one, know that you're reading these words and feeling all the love your mom has for you. He continued reading, and every word was like a knife piercing my heart. Words written 15 years ago on a night of unbearable pain, now coming back to me in the voice of the son they were addressed to. And one day when my time comes, we will be together again. Until then, I will love you and miss you with every breath. Your mom, forever. His voice cracked as he finished reading. You wrote this for me. Yes, I confirmed, tears streaming freely down my face. The night before your funeral. So it's true? Zion's voice sounded defeated. I'm really dead, buried, but then, how am I conscious? How am I talking to you? It was the question that tormented all of us, a question for which we had no answer. I don't know, son, Darius replied, putting an arm around my shoulders in a protective gesture that surprised me. But we're going to figure it out. I promise you. We're not going to leave you alone in this. The battery is dying again, Zion said, his voice suddenly alarmed. I only have 10% now. It's going to turn off soon. Zion, listen. I spoke quickly. We're going to try to find out what's happening. We're going to find a way to help you. Just don't despair. It's okay. We're here. We're going to find you somehow. I'm scared, Mom, he whispered, suddenly sounding like the boy who used to run to my bed during thunderstorms. I'm scared of being left alone in the darkness when the battery dies. I'm scared you won't be able to find me. We're going to find you, I promised, even though I had no idea how to keep that promise. Just hang on. Try to save the battery. Only call if it's really important, okay? Okay, he agreed, his voice weak. Dad, Mom, I love you. We love you too, son, we replied in unison, just like in the old days when he was little and we were tucking him in. The call ended abruptly. The phone screen went back to normal, as if nothing extraordinary had happened, but the tears in Darius's eyes confirmed that he had heard it too. It wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't madness. Somehow, our son was contacting us from beyond the grave. What do we do now? I asked, wiping my tears with the back of my hand. Darius got up, pacing the room, his analytical engineer's brain clearly working overtime. We need to be methodical. First, establish the facts. What do we know for sure? We know Zion died 15 years ago. We know we buried him. We know that somehow he's conscious and managed to call us. And what does that mean? Darius rubbed his face, suddenly looking much older. It's impossible for him to be alive in the casket, Alara. Not after 15 years. I know. I shivered at the thought of the implications. So what? Ghost? Restless soul? Some kind of residual consciousness? Darius had always been the more skeptical of us, a man of science who believed only in what he could see and touch. Seeing him now, considering supernatural possibilities, showed how much that call had affected him. I don't know, but I know we need help. He grabbed his phone. I'm calling Kai. Kai Lewis. Darius's best friend since college. A forensic pathologist who worked at the county morgue, someone who would understand the scientific aspects of the situation. Do you think it's a good idea to involve more people? I questioned nervously. What if he thinks we're crazy? Kai knows me well enough to know I wouldn't make something like this up. Darius was already dialing. We need someone who understands the science part, and also, we're going to need some kind of authorization to exhume the body. The word exhumation made my stomach churn. The idea of digging up Zion, of seeing what was left of him after 15 years, was too disturbing. Do you really think we should do that? I asked, my voice low. Darius looked at me with a seriousness I hadn't seen in years. If that were you, trapped somewhere between life and death, wouldn't you want us to do everything in our power to help you? He was right. If there was any chance of helping our son, we needed to try, no matter how unsettling the idea was. Kai left shortly after, promising to immediately start the process for the exhumation authorization. Darius decided to stay with me, settling onto the living room couch. It was strange to have him back in the house we shared for so many years, the house where we raised our son, the house he abandoned when the grief became unbearable. Night fell, bringing with it a darkness that seemed denser, more oppressive than usual. Neither of us could sleep. We stayed in the living room, Darius on the couch, me in the armchair, the silence heavy between us, broken only by the occasional hoot of an owl or the whisper of leaves in the wind outside. "You still keep his things, don't you?" Darius suddenly asked, looking toward the hallway that led to Zion's room. "Yes," I admitted. "I didn't change anything." He nodded without judgment. "Can I see?" I guided him down the hall to the room that had remained untouched for 15 years. I opened the door slowly, as if afraid of waking someone. The smell of dust and stopped time greeted us. The curtains were drawn, but I turned on the light, revealing the sanctuary I had built for my son. The bed was still made with the Batman blanket he loved, even though it was a kid's thing for a 17-year-old. The desk had school books piled on it, an unfinished math assignment in the open notebook, rock band posters on the walls, a pair of worn sneakers beside the bed, and his guitar in the corner, covered in dust, silenced by time. Darius stood in the doorway, taking it all